A wealthy businesswoman meets a musician in the subway and falls in love, but when she discovers his true past, she is frightened. Sarah was always known for her dedication to work. In the office, she was a respected figure, a young woman who quickly climbed the corporate ladder. However, the constant pressure and competitiveness of New York often left her exhausted. It was during one of these exhausting nights that she found her refuge in the subway. One night, after a particularly stressful day, Sarah decided to take the subway to go home. While waiting, she heard a melody that seemed to instantly ease her tension. It was a song played with such feeling that she found herself drawn closer to the artist. There was Logan, eyes closed, strumming his guitar with palpable passion. Sarah watched his every move, feeling transported to a place where her worries couldn't reach her. The next day, Sarah couldn't resist and returned to the station, hoping to hear that music again. Logan was there, as if waiting for her. With each note he played, Sarah felt an inexplicable connection. She started frequenting the station regularly, longing for the moments when she could escape reality and lose herself in Logan's melodies. One night, Logan finished a song and opened his eyes, finding Sarah's fixed gaze. He smiled shyly, and for a moment it seemed as if time had stopped. Sarah approached him and, with an encouraging smile, said, "You play beautifully. What's your name?" Logan, still surprised by the approach, replied, "Logan." "And you?" "Sarah," she said, extending her hand. "I work nearby and always pass by this station. Your music, it really touches me." Logan shook her hand, feeling an immediate connection. From that moment on, Sarah made sure to always arrive at the station earlier, just to hear Logan play and occasionally exchange a few words with him. The musician, initially reserved, began to open up to her, sharing small stories about his compositions and his passion for music. "I've always wanted to live off music," Logan confessed once while packing up his guitar. "But life has its ways of diverting us from our dreams." Sarah, curious, asked, "What happened?" Logan hesitated for a moment but decided to keep the conversation light. "Oh, just old stories. But what about you, Sarah? What makes a corporate executive spend her time here listening to street music?" She laughed, a little embarrassed. "Sometimes the corporate world can be suffocating. The music, your music, brings a peace that I can't find anywhere else." Over time, the conversations between Sarah and Logan became more frequent and deep. She discovered that behind that street musician was a man full of dreams and scars. Logan, in turn, felt increasingly comfortable sharing parts of his life that he kept hidden. Sarah began to realize that her life didn't have to be defined only by work and the pressures she faced daily. Logan inspired her to look inward and question her own choices and priorities. The music, which initially was just an escape, began to become an essential part of her life. As their connection strengthened, Sarah and Logan couldn't foresee the challenges that would arise, testing not only their relationship but also their own individual strengths. New York, with all its intensity and frenetic pace, would be the stage for a story of love, mystery, and redemption. Sarah begins to frequent the places where Logan regularly plays, and over time, they start to converse. Logan, initially reserved, gradually opens up to Sarah, sharing his passion for music. The connection between them deepens, leading Sarah to question her life and choices. Sarah, a young and ambitious executive, found refuge in the New York subways from the pressures and challenges of corporate life. After an exhausting day at the office, she often headed to the places where she knew Logan, a talented street musician, would be performing. His music had a power that transported her to a place of peace and introspection, something she rarely found in her hectic routine. One night, after a particularly moving performance, Sarah decided to approach Logan. She was nervous but determined to learn more about the man whose music moved her so deeply. "Hi, Logan. I'm Sarah. I I just wanted to say that your music is incredible. It really touches my heart," she said, a bit hesitantly. Logan, surprised by the approach, smiled gently. "Thank you, Sarah. It's always nice to know that my music makes a difference to someone." From that moment on, Sarah began to attend Logan's performances even more frequently. She discovered that he had a regular spot where he played every night. Over time, they developed a routine. After each performance, Sarah would approach him, and they would talk. Logan, initially reserved, began to open up to her, something he rarely did with strangers. "Have you always been a musician?" Sarah asked during one of these conversations. Logan looked into the distance as if reliving old memories. "Ever since I can remember, music has always been a part of me. But it wasn't an easy path. I had to overcome a lot to get here." Intrigued by the enigmatic response, Sarah wanted to know more, but she respected Logan's space. She realized he had a complex past, something he wasn't ready to fully share. However, with each conversation, he let slip small fragments of his life. "You know, Sarah," Logan said one day, "music is my way of expressing myself. Every note, every melody is a part of me that I can't express in any other way. It's, it's like I'm freeing myself from the chains of the past." These words touched Sarah deeply. She began to question her own life and choices. Although she was successful in her career, there was a void that Logan's music seemed to fill. She found herself thinking about the moments she spent with Logan, the conversations, and the emotions his music evoked. One night, as they walked together after a performance, Sarah confessed, "Logan, I feel like your music helps me see my life in a different way. Sometimes, I wonder if I'm on the right path." Logan stopped and looked into her eyes. "Sarah, only you can find the answer to that. But it's important to follow what your heart says. If my music makes you feel something, maybe it's a sign that you need to explore those feelings." The depth of his words resonated with Sarah. She knew her connection with Logan went beyond music. There was a mutual understanding, an empathy that made her feel more alive. Each day, she found herself more involved with Logan, and it made her question her priorities and what really mattered in her life. The relationship between Sarah and Logan became a journey of self-discovery for both. Logan, by opening up to Sarah, began to find a new way to heal from his past. And Sarah, by diving into Logan's music and life, began to see her own life from a new perspective. Together, they were creating a bond that defied the barriers of time and circumstances, leading them to question and rediscover their own identities. The romance between Sarah and Logan blossoms, and they begin to spend more time together outside the subways. During one of these encounters, Logan reveals part of his dark past. He was involved with a dangerous gang but decided to walk away and restart his life through music. Sarah finds herself torn between her growing love for Logan and the fear of the danger his past represents. After weeks of meetings in the subways, Sarah and Logan decided to venture outside the underground environment. On a sunny Saturday, they chose a small cafe in Brooklyn, far from the incessant hustle of Manhattan. Sitting at a table near the window, the sunlight illuminating their faces, creating an atmosphere of intimacy that seemed conducive to confidences. "You never told me much about your life before New York," Sarah commented while stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. There was a softness in her voice, an attempt not to pressure Logan, but curiosity consumed her. Logan took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on the cup in front of him. He knew reaching this point would be inevitable, but still, he felt a knot in his stomach at the thought of revealing his past. "It's a complicated story," he began without lifting his gaze. "I'm not exactly who you think I am." Sarah leaned slightly forward, encouraging him with a sympathetic look. "I want to know the real you, Logan. No matter what happened before, I'm here now." Logan raised his eyes, meeting Sarah's. There was a sincerity there that comforted him, but also scared him. "Before coming to New York, I lived in a small town. I've always been passionate about music, but my life took a turn when I got involved with the wrong people." Sarah remained silent, allowing Logan to continue at his own pace. He continued, "I was going through a tough time, and the idea of being part of something, having a family, seemed appealing. That's how I ended up getting involved with a gang. At first, it seemed harmless, but soon I realized I was trapped in a cycle of violence and crime." Sarah's eyes widened slightly, but she maintained her composure. "And how did you get out of it?" Logan smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Music saved me. It was always the only thing that gave me peace. I decided I couldn't continue down that path, so I ran away. I came to New York, where no one knew me, and started playing in the subways. It was my way of starting over." Sarah nodded slowly, absorbing every word. "You're very brave, Logan. It can't be easy to leave everything behind and start anew." Logan shook his head. "Courage came from necessity. I knew if I continued down that path, there would be no future for me. But the fear of being found is always present." Sarah reached out and took Logan's hand, squeezing it gently. "I'm here with you, and I'm not going anywhere." Logan's eyes shone with gratitude. "Thank you, Sarah. You don't know how much that means to me." As they walked through the park after leaving the cafe, Sarah felt a whirlwind of emotions. Her heart was torn between her growing love for Logan and the palpable fear of the danger his past represented. However, one thing was clear to her. Logan deserved a chance at redemption, and she was willing to help him find the way, no matter the obstacles they had to face together. The bond between them grew stronger each day, and although the future was uncertain, Sarah and Logan found solace in music and each other's presence. They knew the road ahead would be challenging, but both were willing to fight for a new beginning, where love and courage would be their greatest weapons against the ghosts of the past. At work, Sarah faced increasingly greater challenges. James, an ambitious and cunning colleague, made no secret of his desire to usurp her position. He resorted to a series of schemes and sabotage to undermine Sarah's confidence and eventually take her place in the company. The professional pressure increased daily, and Sarah needed to find a way to balance this with the turmoil in her personal life, especially with recent revelations about Logan's past. One morning, Sarah arrived at the office and found her desk cluttered with disorganized documents and incomplete reports. She knew she had left everything in order the night before. "What's going on here?" she murmured to herself, feeling a knot form in her stomach. James, who was sitting at a nearby desk, looked up from his computer screen and gave a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Good morning, Sarah. Looks like someone is having trouble keeping things in order," he said, with a tone of fake concern. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Good morning, James. Don't worry. I'll handle this," she replied with a forced smile. She knew he was behind this, but needed proof before confronting him openly. While dealing with the mess on her desk, Sarah received an urgent message from her boss, summoning her to a meeting. She grabbed her notebook and headed to the conference room, her heart racing. Entering, she found James already seated, casually flipping through some papers. "Sarah, please sit," said the boss, his tone serious. "We've received some complaints about your last presentation. It seems there were significant errors in the data you presented." Sarah was taken aback. She had reviewed those data multiple times. "That's not possible. I meticulously checked everything," she said, trying to hide the frustration in her voice. James intervened with a look of false sympathy. "Maybe you're overworked, Sarah. We all make mistakes when we're under pressure." Sarah felt anger bubbling inside her but maintained her composure. I'll review the documents again and correct any errors that may have occurred, she said determinedly. After the meeting, Sarah went to the bathroom, needing a moment to compose herself. She looked at her reflection in the mirror and questioned whether she could face all these challenges alone. Her phone vibrated with a message from Logan. "How's your day?" he asked. Sarah sighed and replied, "Complicated. James is making everything harder than it already is." Minutes later, Logan called. "Sarah, you're one of the strongest people I know. Don't let him bring you down. We'll find a way to overcome this, together." Logan's words calmed her mind a bit. She knew she wasn't alone. Determined to expose James, Sarah began closely observing his movements in the office, looking for anything she could use as evidence against him. One day, Sarah noticed that James frequently left the conference room carrying confidential documents. She decided to follow him discreetly, and to her surprise, saw him meeting with a man she recognized from Logan's descriptions of the gang. The connection between James and Logan's past finally became clear. One night, Sarah and Logan were talking in his apartment. "Logan, I think I discovered something important. James is involved with the gang. I saw them together," she said urgently. Logan was alarmed. "This is serious, Sarah. We need concrete evidence. If we can get that, we can not only protect you at work, but also dismantle his connection with the gang." Sarah knew that balancing her professional and personal life was becoming increasingly delicate, but she was determined to fight. With Logan's help, she started gathering evidence against James, recording suspicious meetings and collecting information that could expose his true intentions. Meanwhile, in the office, James continued his maneuvers, unaware that Sarah was one step ahead. She knew the battle would be tough, but with Logan by her side, she was prepared to face any challenge. The fate of her career and personal safety were intertwined, and Sarah was ready to fight for both. As time went on, Logan's secrets began to surface, threatening the fragile peace he and Sarah had built. The dark past involving the dangerous gang he was once involved with didn't stay buried for long. The gang's leader, a ruthless man named Victor, discovered Logan's whereabouts and began orchestrating a relentless pursuit to bring him back to the underworld. Logan and Sarah's lives were at risk, and the shadow of danger became a constant presence in their daily lives. It all started on a cold autumn night when Logan was playing one of his favorite songs in the subway. Sarah, as usual, was enchanted by his music, but something seemed different that night. There was a man at the back of the crowd with a fixed and threatening gaze that sent a shiver down Logan's spine. He recognized that look. It was one of Victor's henchmen. Fear enveloped him instantly, but he tried not to show it so as not to alarm Sarah. "Logan, are you okay?" Sarah asked, noticing the sudden change in his expression. I just need some air," Logan replied, trying to smile but failing. "Can you wait here for a minute?" Sarah nodded, worried, as Logan quickly walked away. He went to a more isolated corner and took out his phone, dialing a number he hadn't used in months. "Mark, I need help. They found me," Logan said in an urgent whisper. Mark, the former cop who now worked as a security guard in the subways, heard the trembling voice of Logan on the other end of the line. "Calm down, Logan. Where are you? I'll meet you." Meanwhile, Sarah, restless, followed Logan. When she found him, she saw the grave expression on his face as he hung up the phone. "Logan, what's going on?" she asked firmly. "You're scaring me." Logan looked at her, his mind a mix of fear and guilt. "They found me, Sarah. The gang. Victor. We need to get out of here now." Sarah felt a knot in her stomach, but her determination outweighed the fear. "I'm not leaving you alone in this, Logan. We'll face it together." Logan knew that running away again was an option, but he didn't want to live on the run anymore. He looked into Sarah's eyes, finding strength in her determination. Okay, but we need to be quick and careful. The following days were a whirlwind of tension and planning. Logan and Sarah began changing their routines, always alert for any sign of danger. Mark, with his experience and knowledge of police operations, became a crucial ally. He guided them on how to protect themselves and gather evidence against the gang. "We need solid evidence to take down Victor and his henchmen," explained Mark. "And we need to ensure that both of you are safe. We can't risk a direct confrontation without being prepared." In one of the strategic meetings, Sarah suggested a bold plan. "What if we manage to lure Victor and the gang to a controlled location, something that gives us an advantage?" Mark considered the idea. "That could work, but we would need bait and someone to monitor everything closely." Logan looked at Sarah. "No, it's too dangerous. I can't risk your life like that." "Logan, I'm in this as much as you are," Sarah replied firmly. "If we don't act, they'll never stop chasing us. We need to end this once and for all." The decision was made. With Mark's help, they devised a detailed plan to lure the gang to a strategic location in the subway tunnels, where they could monitor and record all the criminals' actions. The tension grew every day, but Sarah and Logan's determination remained unwavering. As the plan unfolded, Sarah and Logan knew they were risking everything, but they also knew that this was the only way to free themselves from the dark past threatening to destroy their lives. With courage and love, they faced the challenge, ready to fight for a safe and happy future. Sarah and Logan find an unlikely ally in Mark, a former cop who now works as a security guard in the subways. Mark has his own scores to settle with the gang and decides to help the couple face the threat. They begin planning a way to confront the gang and ensure their safety. Sarah and Logan were sitting on a worn wooden bench in the subway station. The environment was noisy, with trains passing and hurried people coming and going. But that afternoon, their thoughts were focused on one person: Mark. They had met Mark by chance when he intervened in a robbery attempt on the platform. Since then, he had become a protective figure, always alert to his surroundings. "We need to talk to him," Logan said, looking at Sarah with determination. "He's our best chance." Sarah nodded, her eyes full of concern. "I know. Let's meet him tonight after work." That night, they headed to the security post where Mark usually stayed. The former cop, a robust man with piercing eyes and an air of authority, greeted them with a nod. "You wanted to talk to me?" Mark asked, crossing his arms. Logan stepped forward. "We need your help. The gang that's after me has found our location. We're in danger." Mark frowned, visibly worried. "I know what you're talking about. That gang has caused many problems around here. I have my own issues with them." Sarah looked at Logan before speaking. "We're willing to fight, but we can't do it alone. We need someone who knows the terrain and the people involved." Mark pondered for a moment, his eyes fixed on Sarah's. "All right, I'll help you, but we need a plan. And quickly." The three sat in an improvised room at the back of the security post. Mark opened a map of the subway lines on the table and began tracing routes and strategies. "First, we need to know how many of them are around and where their meeting points are," Mark said, pointing to different areas on the map. "I know some informants who can give us that information." Logan studied the map attentively, absorbing every detail. "And then? How do we confront them?" Mark looked at Logan, his eyes hard but understanding. "We need to be smart. They're many and well-armed. We'll need more allies." Sarah intervened. "What if we use the street musicians network? Many of them must know the gang's movements." Mark nodded. "Good idea. They can provide us with information and even help in the execution of the plan." In the following days, Sarah, Logan, and Mark began gathering information. Mark contacted his former colleagues and informants, while Logan and Sarah sought the help of street musicians. The plan started to take shape. On a cold night, after a series of secret meetings, they met again in the back room. Mark seemed more confident. "We have what we need. We know where and when they meet. Now we need to act." Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility. "We're ready. Let's end this." Logan held Sarah's hand, his gaze determined. "We'll protect each other and get out of this together." Mark smiled, a rare glimpse of hope on his face. "Then, let's go. We have a battle to win." That night, while the New York subway continued its incessant movement, Sarah, Logan, and Mark prepared for the confrontation. They knew the fight would be difficult and dangerous, but they were united by a common goal: to ensure their safety and the chance for a new beginning. Together, they would face the gang and fight for their freedom. As the tension grew, Sarah began to notice that something wasn't right about James's behavior. He always seemed to be one step ahead, knowing details he shouldn't know. One particularly tense afternoon at the office, Sarah overheard a suspicious conversation between James and an unknown man on the phone. She couldn't hear everything but caught key words that left her worried: Logan, information, and gang. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah decided to investigate on her own. She waited until after hours and returned to James's office. She forced the lock on his drawer and found a hidden notebook. In it were detailed notes about Logan, including his whereabouts and times he performed in the subway. Sarah's blood ran cold as she realized James was secretly involved with the gang and had been revealing Logan's location. Feeling betrayed and furious, Sarah returned home determined to expose James. She knew she needed concrete evidence to bring him down. "I can't let him get away with this," she thought, her eyes shining with determination. That night, Sarah and Logan met at Logan's small apartment, a modest but cozy space that always made them feel safe, even if just for a short time. She shared her findings with him. "Logan, we need to talk," Sarah began, her voice firm but full of emotion. "What happened, Sarah?" Logan asked, worried, noticing the seriousness in her eyes. "I discovered that James is involved with the gang. He's the informant who revealed your location," she revealed, showing the notebook she had found. Logan was silent for a moment, absorbing the information. "So that's why they always knew where I was," he murmured, feeling a mix of anger and betrayal. "We need to gather more evidence against him. We can't let him escape," Sarah said determinedly. Logan agreed, aware of the risks, but also the necessity of acting quickly. In the following days, Sarah began compiling a dossier with all the evidence she could find. She recorded suspicious conversations of James, took photos of compromising documents, and made detailed notes. Meanwhile, Logan and Mark, the ex-cop who now worked as a security guard in the subways and had become a valuable ally, prepared for the final confrontation with the gang. They knew that with James exposed, the gang would become more aggressive and dangerous. In a secret meeting, Sarah, Logan, and Mark discussed the next steps. "We need to act fast," Mark said, his voice grave and authoritative. "As soon as we expose James, the gang will know we're closing in. We need to be ready for anything." "I agree," Logan said, squeezing Sarah's hand. "We're in this together. I won't let anything happen to you." Sarah nodded, feeling strengthened by Logan's determination and Mark's firm presence. "We're going to bring down James and the gang. We won't let them destroy our lives." That night, Sarah managed to get a meeting with the department head, Mr. Rodriguez, a fair and respected man in the company. She presented all the evidence against James, detailing his betrayal and involvement with the gang. Mr. Rodriguez was shocked, but promised to take the necessary steps. "Sarah, you did the right thing by bringing this to light. We'll deal with James and ensure he answers for his actions," he assured her. With James exposed, the tension reached its peak. The gang, now knowing that Logan and Sarah were ready to fight, increased their threats. Sarah and Logan knew they were in a race against time, but they were determined to face the challenge together, ready for the final confrontation that would define their lives. Sarah, a young and ambitious executive in New York, finds an escape in the vibrant musical scene of the city's subways. It's there that she meets Logan, a talented and charismatic street musician whose music deeply touches her heart. As their romance blossoms, Sarah discovers a side of Logan he has been keeping secret. He is running from a dark past involving a dangerous gang. Logan, once a promising music student, found himself involved with the wrong people in a moment of vulnerability. Now trying to rebuild his life through music, he lives in fear of being found. When secrets from Logan's past begin to surface, the gang discovers his whereabouts, putting both of them in danger. Simultaneously, Sarah faces challenges at work, where an ambitious colleague tries to usurp her position. Torn between her career and her love for Logan, Sarah must decide if she is willing to risk everything to help him find redemption and a new beginning. Meanwhile, Logan struggles internally between protecting Sarah and confronting his past. Together, they find unlikely allies, including a former cop who now works as a security guard in the subways and has his own scores to settle with the gang. Amid growing tension, Sarah and Logan discover that the strength of their love might be the key to overcoming the greatest obstacles. They must decide how far they are willing to go to protect each other and achieve the freedom and happiness they desperately desire. The situation reaches a critical point when the gang kidnaps Sarah, using her as bait to lure Logan. Desperate, Logan teams up with Mark and other street musicians, who prove to be more loyal than he imagined, to rescue Sarah. The final battle takes place in a tense and dangerous confrontation in the subway tunnels. Night fell over New York, and the city's lights shone brightly. The subway tunnels, usually crowded, were quieter, reflecting the tension in the air. Sarah had been kidnapped by the gang. Tied up and gagged, she tried to stay calm, but the fear was palpable. Logan, upon discovering the kidnapping, felt his heart stop for a moment. Sarah is in danger because of me, he thought, feeling crushed by guilt. He knew he couldn't face the gang alone. He decided to seek out Mark, the former cop who now worked as a security guard in the subways. "Mark, I need your help." "They took Sarah," Logan said, his voice loaded with desperation. "Calm down, kid. We'll handle this." "I know how these guys operate," Mark replied, with a determined look. He knew this was his chance to settle the score with the gang that had tormented his life. Logan and Mark began formulating a plan. Mark used his contacts and knowledge of the subway tunnel's structure to locate where the gang might be holding Sarah. They also sought help from street musicians who, in solidarity with Logan, volunteered to help. "We'll show them we're not alone," said Miguel, a street guitarist. "They don't know who they're messing with." The tension grew with each passing minute. In the dark tunnels, the gang prepared to receive Logan. "He'll come for her, and when he does, we'll be ready," said the gang leader, a man known as Cobra. He was ruthless and had no intention of letting Logan escape again. Logan, Mark, and the street musicians approached the location where Sarah was being held silently. Logan's heart pounded, but he knew he needed to stay calm. His mind was focused on one thing: saving Sarah. "Logan, we're with you. Let's end this once and for all," Mark said, giving Logan a friendly pat on the shoulder. They entered the tunnels, using every shadow to their advantage. As they approached the gang's hideout, they heard Sarah's voice. "Logan, don't come. It's a trap," she screamed, her voice trembling with fear. "I'll get you out of here, Sarah, I promise," Logan whispered to himself, determined. Logan and his group attacked by surprise. The ensuing battle was intense and dangerous. In the tight tunnels, every move was crucial. The street musicians, though not fighters, used creativity to confront the gang members, while Mark, with his police experience, led the offensive. Cobra, the gang leader, confronted Logan directly. "You thought you could escape me? You thought wrong, kid," he said, drawing a knife. "I'm not running anymore. This ends today," Logan replied, facing Cobra with courage. The fight between Logan and Cobra was fierce, but Logan, motivated by his love for Sarah, managed to disarm Cobra and immobilize him. Mark ensured the other gang members were captured. Finally, Logan ran to Sarah, untying her and holding her in his arms. "I love you, Sarah. I'll never let anything happen to you again," he said, tears in his eyes. "I love you too, Logan. I knew you'd come," she replied, hugging him tightly. As the police arrived to arrest the gang members, Logan and Sarah knew that together they could face anything. The battle had been won, but the fight for peace and happiness continued, and they were ready to face everything as long as they were together. During the confrontation in the subway tunnels, chaos takes over. The lights flicker, casting unsettling shadows on the damp walls, and the sound of hurried footsteps echoes like a war drum. Logan, Sarah, and Mark advance with determination, but the tension in the air is palpable. Logan feels the weight of every decision that led him to this moment, while Sarah, with her heart racing, tries to stay calm. Mark, with his experience as a former cop, leads the group with a mix of strategy and instinct. "Stay together. Don't split up for anything," Mark instructs, his voice firm but low so as not to alert the gang members. They advance through the tunnels, alert to any movement. Suddenly, a metallic sound reverberates, and a group of men emerges from the shadows. The gang is there, ready for the confrontation. Among them, James, the traitor, watches with a cynical smile. "So, you thought you could escape us, Logan?" James taunts, his voice dripping with malice. Logan narrows his eyes, the resentment evident on his face. "You used me, James. From the beginning, you manipulated me for your own interests." James laughs, a cold and remorseless sound. "You were just a pawn, Logan. A talented young man, but easily swayed. I did what I had to do to get ahead." Sarah, beside Logan, feels a wave of indignation. "And you ruined lives in the process. Innocent people paid the price for your greed." James shrugs, indifferent. "Business is business, Sarah. You, of all people, should understand that." Before Sarah can respond, the gang advances. The battle is intense and brutal. Logan and Mark fight with all their strength, while Sarah uses her cunning to dodge and protect Logan. Every move is a dangerous dance between life and death. Amid the chaos, Logan notices something that leaves him perplexed. Among the gang members, he recognizes familiar faces from his past, young people who, like him, were victims of James's manipulations. "You don't have to do this," Logan shouts, trying to reach those who still have a chance at redemption. "We can change. We can get out of this life." Some of the young people hesitate, but the pressure and fear are too great. The fight continues fiercely, and Logan finds himself forced to confront those he once considered friends. Meanwhile, Mark confronts James directly. The two men exchange blows, the accumulated anger fueling each move. Mark, with contained ferocity, finally manages to bring James down. "You destroyed many lives, James. Justice has finally caught up with you," Mark declares, handcuffing the traitor with precise skill. James tries to break free, but it's useless. "This doesn't end here. There will always be others like me," he growls, but his power is broken. With James captured and the gang dismantled, the battle comes to an end. Logan, Sarah, and Mark are exhausted but victorious. However, victory has its price. Some of the allies they found in the tunnels paid the ultimate price in the fight for freedom. Logan, with teary eyes, holds Sarah's hand. "I'm so sorry for all of this, Sarah. You shouldn't have had to go through this. Sarah squeezes Logan's hand tightly. We went through this together, Logan, and now we're free. Mark approaches, placing a comforting hand on Logan's shoulder. You did the right thing, Logan. Now it's time to rebuild. As the three of them ascend back to the surface, they know their lives will never be the same. The scars of the confrontation are deep, but the hope of a new beginning shines brightly. They face the past, and together they earn the chance for a better future.